Great. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming. Happy summer solstice. I was talking about today is the official start of summer, although it feels like we're in the thick of it. So appreciate you all coming out to brave the heat and humidity. First off, I want to really thank Corey and the INCOG team for hosting. Where's Corey? There he is. Even before I officially joined, I was on a flight back from San Francisco JP Morgan conference. And as luck would have it, I sat across the aisle in the exit row with Doug and Corey, who I'd never met before. And there were some empty seats in our row, and so I leaned over and we started chatting and found out what they're up to. Like, oh, and so I felt comfortable enough to say, by the way, in about 2 weeks, I'm going to be joining BioCrossroads. And the first thing that came out of, I think, Doug's mouth was, don't forget about fishers. So be careful what you ask for. We brought the party up here. We typically have these FrameWORX events downtown at 16 Tech, which is a great innovation center. But I thought it was also important to bring the show on the road and to get out into the community. Really wonderful community that Mayor Fadness and other leaders like Corey and Doug and Ricardo are building out here in the Telix group. The vision that they have with regard to building a life science park here and innovation for life sciences is awesome. So really a wonderful micro cluster being built here that's really enabling growth in our sector. So, who's first time FrameWORX? All right, awesome. Well, welcome. We do 4 or 5 of these every year, and we try to tackle a different pressing salient topic within the industry, and also enable it as a platform for important networking to happen for those that are interested in growing life sciences. So the first one we did was back, I think, in February, March timeframe. We had one around our new sector strategy. We talked about each pillar, and then the one we did a couple months ago, we focused on some regional clusters. We focused on Bloomington, Lafayette, and Warsaw. And this session today, without any surprise, is about manufacturing. So one of the 4 pillars in our sector strategy is to expand manufacturing for life sciences here in Indiana. And so this is a really exciting time for Indiana to really flex our muscle with regard to building out manufacturing. Just as you can see in the news, there's a big focus on bringing some semiconductor chip manufacturing to the U.S., to bring EV battery manufacturing to the U.S., but there's also a third leg to that stool is life science manufacturing as well. We saw during the pandemic the kind of frailty and the vulnerability of our supply chain for life sciences, and patients had challenges getting medication that they needed, and also PPE that we need, our caregivers needed to tackle the pandemic. And so the federal government and industries really focused on really bringing back home manufacturing and the supply chain within life sciences. And so Indiana does quite a few things well, but one thing we really do well is make things. And so this is a great opportunity for Indiana to capitalize on, and we're definitely leaning in on that. You couple that trend with the really explosion and transformative impact of GLP-1s having on our landscape. This is, I think, as transformative as AI on our society. And we are now the epicenter of GLP-1s, given Lilly's presence here, given all the suppliers supporting Lilly, given Novo coming into Bloomington through the Catalent acquisition, and it's just super exciting. And Richard DeMarchi, Dr. DeMarchi being down in Bloomington as well. So that's the context that we are operating within, and really frames up today's discussion. So future, I'm going out of order, I know, Amanda, so sorry about that. Future summit events future events is our November 7th summit. We will be tackling the topic I just talked about. So really spending a day talking about different dimensions of this GLP-1 revolution that's happening. So this is going to be down at the Built Well Event Center. Thank you. And we encourage you to go to our website, BioCrossroads.com, and I believe you can already register. Is that right, Amanda and Lindsay? And so this will be a wonderful event of world-leading speakers and thought leaders tackling, again, the different dimensions of cardiometabolic disease management. All right? And then, so in the rearview mirror, in 2023, we attained the #1 position of all states for pharmaceutical manufacturing exports. And then we're number 2 state for life science exports, if you exclude Puerto Rico. And there's about 3,700, up to 3,700 manufacturing jobs that are estimated to be needed every year for the next 10 years to meet the demand that we have for our industry. And we have almost 8% projected CAGR in manufacturing here in Indiana through nationwide side, sorry, by 2030. And so, this is what's in the rearview mirror. I would say what's in the front view mirror is all these amazing openings we're having. So the last 2 weeks, we've seen an opening facility of Orano Med on the west side of their facility would be the first manufacturing facility for lead-212 isotope aided therapies. Super exciting. We had last week as well a groundbreaking of Simtra, over 150,000 square feet of expansion of their fill manufacturing space. Mike and I had earlier this week the opportunity to go to Stevanato, which is just a stone's throw away. Incredible facility that Ricardo and team are building there that's going to ultimately employ up to 500 people. This facility and its expansion that's being enjoyed here at INCOG. So just incredible momentum happening in manufacturing as seen by just successive groundbreakings and inaugurations that are opening. So I think it's a great time for us to be talking about this topic. With that, I'm going to hand it over to the MC, Karen Campbell. So thank you, Karen, from WTHR, and we appreciate you supporting our discussion today. Karen?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. I am interested in learning so much from all of you, not just the panelists, but all of you. I find this topic very fascinating. So we want to start with our fireside chat today. Many of you already know him, CEO and President of INCOG BioPharma Services, Corey Lewis.
Thanks for coming, everybody, by the way. Great to have you here.
So, Corey, many people in this room may already know who you are, but you founded INCOG in 2020, just 4 years ago. Was that during COVID?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Great timing, huh?
Yeah. So you serve as the Chief Executive Officer and President. Now, you spent more than 20 years working in the CDMO markets, and before founding INCOG, you served as the General Manager of Catalent Biologics Drug Product Business and led 3 global sites. That's impressive. 3 global sites while supporting over 100 customers. So prior to Catalent, you served as VP of Business Operations with Cook Pharmica and worked at Baxter Pharmaceutical Solutions. There you led business development activities that contributed to that CDMO business growing from 325 employees to over 1,000 employees. Can we give Corey a round of applause just for that? That's very impressive.
She's going to make me blush, too. Jeez.
So we know that you are no stranger to this landscape. So getting right into it, talk a little bit more about INCOG and how Fishers became your home.
Yeah. So never in my wildest dreams did I think we would start a company in Fishers. I grew up in Pendleton, 15 miles down the road, would drive here down to Castleton, do some shopping. It was cornfields, just was not part of my plan. But in 2019, my wife's back there somewhere, but had a moment where I stepped back away from everything and said, what do I want to do? And I really thought I was going to go outside of life science manufacturing, 20 years in the space. but quickly started having some discussions. Doug Dayhoff was one of my advisors. He's now our CFO. Ted Green, who's not here today, co-founder with us in the organization. Now, we started talking and said, man, there is just such a great opportunity for more manufacturing in the state of Indiana. Clearly, Baxter in Bloomington, Cook in Bloomington, now both those businesses have been sold. But we said there is a market. Indiana, as Vince just said, is a manufacturing state, great exporter of life science products. So we said, why not try to do it again, and why not do it at a different scale, do it at a different level of service? And right to your point, February of 2020 is when we started the endeavor in terms of fundraising. June, we founded the company, and that was through a visit. Where's Megan? I just saw Megan Baumgartner come in. So Doug and I and Ted had this great meeting with Megan Baumgartner, if you haven't met her, in charge of economic development for the city of Fishers. If Scott's here, great meeting with him. We said, tell us about it. We're looking at Colorado, Tennessee, Texas, and of course we wanted to be in Indiana. And truly, I think the moment, Doug, you can probably attest to this, the moment we met with Fishers as a community and those two individuals specifically, we said, this is it.
Yeah.
It was just, you could see that it was a lean forward attitude. You know, Scott will be the first to tell you he didn't know anything about manufacturing and life science. I mean, he knew IoT and, launch Fishers, but life science was a new space, but he just embraced it. And here we are, 4 years later, we said Fishers is our place, and have done a great job attracting others like Ricardo and Stevanato Group, and I think at this stage close to 1,200 jobs committed to the city of Fishers, and probably close to $750 million, maybe $1 billion of investment. So just a cool story. We thought we were building INCOG, and have now had the opportunity to help form and shape a little community here in Fishers.
Yeah, well, we are happy to have you, I'm sure, here in Fishers. How is your business evolving in just the last 4 years to meet some of the broader trends in life sciences manufacturing?
Yeah, I mean, specifically our model, right? Every time you start a company, you put a financial model together. Mm-hmm. Our model was we would do clinical work for probably 3 to 5 years. We would grow, prove ourselves, move into commercial. We were wrong. Our very first product in the facility was a commercial program. Doesn't happen very often. Kareem Abdelkader, who was our chief commercial officer at the time, helped us land this deal. Kudos to him for helping get us there. And ultimately, that project, along with a few others that were involved with it, allowed us to get to commercial probably every bit of 2 years earlier than we expected. So we just had our first FDA approval. February was the inspection. By April, we got the approval, and now it just opened up a number of doors. So clinical we will forever do, but what's happened as a result of this approval and a couple other things in the market, it just said, hey, we need to step back and look at accelerating the business, and that's why we're putting in a second line. That's why we're talking about a second building and just some more growth that's in front of us.
All right. Yeah. Looking forward to see what you do in the future.
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's talk about contract manufacturing organizations. We know they play a crucial role in life sciences ecosystem, right? Can you share any key factors that have helped shape your business?
Yeah, I mean, if you step back and, clearly COVID totally disrupted the market, right? I mean, to bring in billions of doses of products in a short period of time, excuse me, that was a change. That was something that had never been done before. And that really helped serve as a catalyst for we need to be doing more contract manufacturing, and we need to be doing more of it in the U.S. So certainly over the last 4 years, there's a continued trend of onshoring, bringing products back into the U.S. manufacturing cycle, and that's something that's pretty exciting. You look at what's happening with the GLP-1 space, that's a whole nother market. I mean, who would have expected a market that 2 years ago, or certainly 5 years ago, was really just getting started? Today, it's probably a $25 to $30 billion market. I think they project by 2030 it's going to be $100 billion. By 2032, I think it's $150 billion. It's just some crazy numbers. Well, majority of that's injectables, right? Sterile injectables, syringes, cartridges, vials. So there's just going to be certainly a need for more manufacturing. You couple that with what's happened over the last 20 years around biologics in general. Continue to see more and more approvals for biologics, and the reason we chose life sciences, aging population, access to healthcare is improving, medicines are improving. So there's just a lot of good trends that are working for our business and anybody that's in the life science space specifically.
Yeah. So in this business, partnerships are important, right? Yep. Collaboration is very important. We know it can lead to enhanced innovation. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about some of the partnerships that have been impactful for INCOG?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the one that I'll highlight first, and probably probably the easiest is Stevanato Group, right? If you think of what Stevanato Group is, they manufacture, and I've only known them, I've known them for probably 15 years, but I've always thought of them as a component manufacturer. So they manufacture glass vials, syringes, cartridges. So when we started our line, you've got to have a lot of glass to qualify a production line, millions of units. So we partnered with Stevanato because our line can do vials, syringes, cartridges. They supply vials, syringes, cartridges. Mind you, it was in the middle of the pandemic too, so getting access to glass vials was not easy. Getting access to glass syringes was not easy. But through a partnership, we said, hey, let's figure this out. Let's get our line qualified with their components, and that put us probably, if we would have had to go to other vendors, candidly, we probably would have been 6 to 12 months behind schedule. But through partnerships, and it wasn't even proximity of components coming from this site because this site wasn't here yet. But nonetheless, that's the way a partnership works, is collaborating together, getting to market, and now we do a really good job of every time a customer is in Fishers, probably 9 times out of 10, Ricardo, they're stopping by their site and vice versa.
Yeah.
Mayor Fadnish just announced this week a third manufacturing group that will likely be coming. We're going to build on an ecosystem, being able to take components, fill them here. We'll certainly have some packaging capabilities, but another company to do packaging and clinical labeling. So there's some good things happening, certainly here in Fishers.
Yeah. So you talked a lot about growth, right? What do you see in the future in terms of growth, whether it's here within INCOG, life sciences, partnerships?
Yep.
What do you see?
I mean, broadly speaking, whatever the number may be, different reports, but it's certainly 7 to 10% compounded annual growth. Like, that's going to happen. Our goal is to accelerate, right? With the investments we're making, we're going from 0 to something much bigger than that. So there's certainly growth for the next 5 to 10 years within this space with a high level of certainty. Again, partnerships, we'll continue to do more partnerships, certainly as we, not just on the glass side, but as we get further downstream with auto injectors, the trend for biologics, GLP-1s, putting them into auto injectors and different pen systems. So we're already working on partnerships and collaborations to help our customers, right? Because we don't have our own products. Everything we do is a third-party manufacturing. So we're helping our customers get their supply chain in order, and then us being able to help on the manufacturing side of it. And when you have strong partnerships, it happens easier, it happens faster, happens with higher certainty.
Yeah. So would you say having those partnerships will make it, I don't know if easier is the right word, to achieve some of the goals that you have?
Oh, hands down, it'll make it easier, but it's just, and ease isn't just about being able to get it done, it's also timelines. So without partnerships, it can take 12 months. With partnerships, you can get things done in 6 months. So those partnerships are critical, and even from a recruiting standpoint, I mean, when we go and recruit talent, if we do it on our own, our team is great, and we've gone from 88 people to 125, but we can't do it on our own. We have to have partnerships with recruiters, and I mean, it's not always on the equipment or the component side. I mean, it's different partnerships when we build a building, right? We don't build it on our own. We've got great partnerships with Shield Sexton and other providers in the network. So it's,
Okay.
You need teamwork. It's all about teamwork.
All right. Well, Corey, thank you. You are going to stick around because we want to invite our first panel up. So if you would help me welcome our first panel. We're going to talk about innovations in life sciences manufacturing. Help me welcome Dr. Elizabeth Topp, Director of the William D. and Sherry L. Young Advanced Manufacturing of Pharmaceuticals Institute. And Ricardo Buta, President of the Americas Stevanato Group. So we are going to take a look at some of the cutting-edge technologies, processes that can enhance the local supply chain and product development, and some of the opportunities that lie ahead. Dr. Topp, I want to start with you today. Hi. Uh-oh.
Thank you. We're on.
We're on.
Good.
So, Dr. Topp, I wanted to start with you. We talk about the rapid advancement in pharmaceutical manufacturing technologies. Can you describe or list some of the promising innovations that you see on the horizon that could revolutionize product development and supply chain efficiency?
It's a big topic, and
Yeah.
so what I want to do is maybe bring it a little closer
Yeah.
to home and talk about some of the stuff that we've been kicking around at Purdue and in other places where I'm active, and I'll talk about that in a second, just within the last little while. So one of the buzzy things that we've been talking about at Purdue in the last bit is automated visual inspection. And so I'm a sort of nerd science person. I'm interested in chemistry and molecules. And so when people started talking to me about automated visual inspection, I sort of said, we're going to do automated visual inspection. Talk to me more about what's going on there. And so the discussion at Purdue around AVI is, well, right now, a lot of product is rejected during visual inspection. And historically in pharma, as many of you probably know, the way that we do visual inspection of product is a lot of people with good vision, way better than mine. Young people sit around and look at vials full of product and see if there's little stuff floating in there. That's slow, and they get tired, right? And so we'd like to move to the place, and we'd like to convince the FDA that we should move to the place where we have machines that look at these vials. But we kind of have to teach the machines how to do this. And so all of this wraps around to, well, maybe we could do automated visual inspection automatically with cameras and machines, and maybe we could roll AI into that idea so that the machines could actually learn something over time, and so that every new little piece of flocculant in your vial is not a new horizon, but is learning as the way that the physical human examiners learned. And then, of course, I have colleagues at Purdue who can't resist the analytical side of things, and they say, well, while we're at it, if we're talking about solid materials in those vials, why don't we do solid-state NMR spectroscopy on vials that are going through the line to be able to tell whether there are deviations from the last 500 vials that went through? And while we're at it, why don't we then do photoelectron spectroscopy, fluorescent spectroscopy of those same vials to see it's like, it's a smackdown, throwdown kind of time for the analytical people. So we get excited about things like that to start to say, how can we make manufacturing better? To shift gears, and another one that's one of my particular favorites that some of you will know about, my colleague at Purdue, Alina Alexenko, for years has been working on microwave-assisted or radio frequency-assisted freeze drying. So we have a lot of freeze-dried products. If you look at a vial of a product that's going to be injected, some of them are liquids ready to inject into you, and some of them are powders that have to be reconstituted prior to injection. Those powders are usually made by this process called lyophilization or freeze-drying. Freeze-drying is very slow, and it's 5% energy efficient at best. Alina and her group over the last while have been trying to figure out how to use microwave frequency energy to speed up that drying process and give us a high-quality product in less time. So I've babbled on for a while. I'll zip it now and let some other people have a turn, but that's just some of the stuff we're talking about.
Well, you touched on AI, right? AI has been growing for some time. Some people are scared of what AI will bring. Some people welcome AI and how it can help, right? How it can help their business. Ricardo and Corey, feel free to jump in on this. How can AI advance technology?
Yeah, good. Very good question. And by the way, we get excited by the same topics that you mentioned. Indeed, if you look at our portfolio of solutions, among them we have automated visual inspection systems, exactly for what was described, and we are pushing a lot the AI vector with our machines. By the way, our machines that are deployed and at the premises of our customers, we intend to have them optimize the performance in terms of false reject rate, because there is a lot of money associated with these drugs that are being processed. And we want to make sure that we minimize what is a false error and the waste associated to it. And for us, is a system that we introduced a few years ago. We continue to refine that system. And what we have been doing lately, we started to have a virtual environment for that same system that we make available to our customers so that they can early on during the development already start modeling what is going to happen with a certain machine on a certain presentation with a certain molecule, and optimize the performance from day one. or when you have a machine installed there, we help customers to do all the processing ahead of time if they want to go over onto a new product. So there is a lot of investment and R&D effort that is going into developing these models, and we see the benefit already in the real-time, real-life applications.
Yeah. And Corey, do you see the same benefits, especially talking about digital twins and emerging technologies and how it can basically help advance sciences?
Yeah, I mean, certainly when you think about digital twin, we've got a very expensive filling line. If we had a digital twin in a lab that allowed us to test the parameters of our filling equipment, but do it in a candidly less expensive environment, that would be a huge benefit. The other places where AI can come into play is today, running a facility, you've got a lot of preventative maintenance. Well, can you change that model and do predictive maintenance? So rather than wait until something breaks, can you anticipate what the break and failure point is? Can you have your runtime be higher? So using the technology to analyze it, you can either do it time-based or you can do it based on an anticipated event happening, and either one of two things: either catch it before it breaks and do maintenance in 3 months, not 6, or vice versa. Why change it out at 6 months if it's good for 9 months, right? Why change it out at 6 months if it's good for 12 months? So over time, our engineering team will continue to look at that to say, where can we use AI and predictive analysis to help operations and efficiency and cost and everything that goes with it.
Yeah. So let's talk about today's workforce, because we also have to prepare for tomorrow's workforce. What do you think Indiana, and this is open to all panelists, what do you think Indiana has to do to make sure that we are prepared when it comes to advancing manufacturing technologies and making sure that our workforce is not only prepared today, but in the future?
Very good question. I think we are already working in that direction. If you see what we are doing collectively with BioCrossroads and a few other companies, the process is already in motion. First thing is to really understand when you look out 5 years and you look at our roadmap in terms of products and technologies that we are bringing in. I guess same for Corey, same for other pharma companies and other players in the industry. What is that we are going to do? What are those products that we are going to manufacture? What are those technologies we are going to deploy or even to develop and bring to market? And from there, you go back and say, okay, if that is what we plan to do, what are the skills that are needed? What are the profiles that we want to bring into our factories? And you start to overlap my needs with the needs of Corey, with the needs of other people, and see where the common set is. And with that, I think the idea is we could go and develop curriculums and develop partnerships with Purdue and other players, and even utilize some of our infrastructure for some of that training once you have people ready to go. Because one thing is to go through a certain curriculum, the other is to be hands-on and know what you need to do on those machines that Corey talked about. There is a lot of complexity, and we have a lot of that equipment already installed. We have a lot of infrastructure already available. So I think there is the possibility there to combine the theoretical element with the practical hands-on element that we need to be successful with the scale-up of those capabilities. So that is the way I see it playing, or the way I would like it to go as we partner and collaborate, so that ultimately, we are not there stealing people from each other, but we have a pool of people that we can draw from, right?
I really hope that our HEIs, Purdue and BioCrossroads and Ivy Tech and others can work to support that developing workforce. I mean, Vince said, I think, 3,700 people a year or something. It's like, wow, that's a lot of people to be upskilled or brought in to the industry per year for Indiana. And just as a sidebar, Corey spent the pandemic standing up a company. I spent the pandemic in Ireland, and not on vacation. I was at the National Institute for Bioprocessing Research and Training. Some of you may know it. It's an Irish government-sponsored institution. Its acronym is NIBRT. And NIBRT exists to train the workforce in Ireland for the biopharmaceutical industry. It's not a university. It stands apart from the university, and they develop bespoke training courses for companies like Lilly, who have have manufacturing plants in Ireland. And my hope as a member of Purdue is that ultimately we can be doing something like that, maybe in the Leeds district in Lebanon, maybe in combination with all our great HEIs here to do exactly what you were talking about a second ago, to put together a workforce training curriculum that helps bring people up to speed quickly so that we can bring people on board and maybe upskill people who are interested from within the industry or without to join us more quickly.
Yeah, and the thing that I'll add on that is you're not going to do it as an individual company. Certainly companies like Lilly have the economic means to partner with Purdue and do it at a big scale. Well, there's a lot of other companies that may not have that, so we need the support of groups like BioCrossroads, like some of the things that Mayor Fadness is looking to do to help us bring the private side together with the public, and can we create the right environment for training. We don't have it solved yet by any means, but it's going to take a lot of people putting their heads together. Certainly the other thing, I think, candidly, for the state of Indiana, we just need to do a better job of recruiting. I mean, the data is there. We're a great place to live, good cost of living. So it's not always about training up people. It could also be pulling people in from the surrounding states, and I think we've done that fairly successfully over the years. It's not going to be one thing that solves the problem. It's a number of solutions that have to come together to hit that 3,700 number that Vince referenced.
Yeah. Staying with Purdue, I want to talk to you about Purdue. So Purdue has proposed something to the FDA, a consortium of sorts, to enhance advanced manufacturing for the pharmaceutical industry, right? Talk about how this would work.
We're super excited about this. So we responded, we're beggars in academia in case you didn't know that already. And so one of our most recent begging exercises was in response to a call for proposals from the FDA. And they said, to everyone, propose to us a collaboration that would help advance the things that FDA is interested in. They had a very long list of things. Advanced manufacturing was one of them. So we jumped on that and put together a proposal that went into them in early April that said, we'd like to stand up a consortium that would involve the FDA to advance pharmaceutical manufacturing, and our particular focus is sterile injectable drug product. And so one of the things that most of you know that's interesting about pharma is we divide the pharma world into large molecules and small molecules. We divide the pharma world into drug substance and drug product. And a lot of what's happening in Indiana is about drug product. And so we'd like to be able to support manufacturing of sterile injectable drug product. Now, when you start looking at that space, it's not just about making cool new technologies happen. Because cool new technologies that aren't approvable, aren't FDA approvable, are not new technologies that anybody can ever care about. And so the exciting part of this, I think, of one of them, is not only do we get to talk about exciting new technologies, but we get to involve FDA in the conversation early. And we hope to do that in partnership with pharma, especially in the Indiana area, but also globally and nationally too, so that we can start to crack some of these problems that we were talking about earlier.
Ricardo, moving on. Let's talk about attracting global investments. That's huge, right? What's your advice? How do we do that?
You are doing that. We are here on the other side of the highway, so I guess it's a joke, but it's not a joke, meaning I think Indiana did a lot already, and as Corey said, there are certain elements that are core of this state that are very, very interesting to people like us coming from abroad. If you talk about the education system, the knowledge that is around is clearly important for people like us. You think about the infrastructure, the logistics, the possibility to easily reach customers with distribution from here, the financial support that is being offered. So all of that, I think, for us at least, has been very important. And and we all look at the same news, right? You see what is going on every day. There is someone else landing in Indiana and in Fishers particularly. So I think you are doing a very good job, or hopefully we are doing a good job. The piece that there are two things that I would add. One is what we just discussed is people, right? We need to make sure one concern that is always in the back of mind of people wanting to transfer in is, okay, will we need to fight for talents, right? And so I think we need to take that away from the list of concerns, and we need to have a solution for the long term. Not only for people coming in, but also for people wanting, once they are in, wanting to continue to invest and grow. Because one thing is to be here with a certain set of activities, the other is to say, okay, now I double down with the capacity, or now I start to bring in additional capabilities that maybe are still back in other regions, right? So that is one piece. The other, which I was discussing yesterday with Vince and Mike, is making sure that we work to complete the solution. Right now, we have pieces of the solution in terms of the supply chain. We are part of the solution for a certain piece. But if you think about going from raw material to component to finished products to services, sterilization and logistics and so on, I think there is work to be done there. And that is where we should invest so that we truly have a localized, integrated supply chain.
So I have a question for each of you. We've talked about looking toward the future, right? We've talked about workforce, attracting global partners with this. What do you think are some of the key regulatory and policy changes that could impact the growth and innovation of life science manufacturing in Indiana?
Okay, maybe I start. So don't need to copy your answer then, right? So, okay, life science is broad, right? There is everything in there. If I look at our space, more the injectables products, I think there are 2 or 3 regulations or policies that are coming down that are very impactful and are driving efforts on our side, and of course everyone in the same space to innovate and be able to deliver. One for sure is Annex 1 and the entire thing around improved, tighter contamination control strategy. There is a lot of innovation to be able to comply there. Another one, if you look at sterilization, is the push to move away from ETO, going into better technologies that are less impactful on the health and safety of people. A third one, which is obvious to everyone, but when you look then at the implications, is very, very relevant, is the push to go more into sustainability and environmentally friendly solution. And when you look at our case, for example, we are innovating on secondary packaging of our products to be able to reduce the level of particles and contaminations that we generate when we bring our products into the sterile environment of people like Corey. And with that, we are looking at the secondary packaging as well in terms of, okay, can we develop something that uses different materials, less materials, that can work with a different sterilization technique. We are actually prototyping in our facility. We are testing, validating VHP as opposed to ETO, so that we move away from the ETO technologies and all the risks that are there, and the logistics implication, because today we have to ship to Carolina and back in order to get our products sterilized. And when you look at the environmental piece, there is, we not only we manufacture products, but we develop and manufacture the equipment to manufacture the products. So we own our own processes, and there is a big effort there. Our business is energy intensive. There is a big effort there to move away from certain sources of energy to something that is renewable. Big push to reduce the consumption of water, for example, and all of this is causing a lot of innovation. Is enabling a lot of innovation, both on the product side, process side, that is going to benefit everyone. But again, if I go back and then I close, if I go back to the point you made earlier, is also a huge investment for people like us to be able to deliver on these things, and so. For me, one area where we need to put attention and focus is where do we go and get support? What are the incentives that are there so that we can innovate and we can deliver on these major changes in policies and regulatory requirements in a sustainable way?
Sure.
keep this very short. So we talked earlier about the FDA proposal that we have pending. One of the interesting aspects of that I didn't mention, and big credit to Brad Beach, who's here from Purdue, who helped with this, is that a component of that proposal that I thought was really great was Brad requested industry challenge statements. So not only did we have pre-proposals that came from faculty with our usual round of wild ideas of stuff that we want to do, but Brad also reached out to industry and said, what do you need us to do? And you just gave us a great list of wonderful challenge statements that I wish we could capture. But, so we hope that as we go forward with that consortium idea that you'll talk to us and that you'll bring us your challenge statements and maybe we can help.
And maybe two things for me, from my perspective. First, just making it easy for companies to, build a facility, to get up and going, right? All the red tape that takes place within a city or a state or a government to make that happen. We've got to figure out a way to make that easier, and I think certainly here we've done that fairly well. The second piece, and this would be maybe something that our head of quality can speak to better than I, but today we're going to be manufacturing products that are ultimately going to get approval for the U.S. markets, for the European markets, for Canada, et cetera. Today that would generally mean that you've got to have the U.S. FDA here, you've got to have the European inspection group here, you've got to have Canada here. They're working on a system and it's only recently been rolled out, but how novel of a concept is it to say, hey, let's do one inspection that's supportive of both U.S. and European? So that's only rolled out recently, but we've got to figure out how at an FDA level we can make it easier, not cut corners, I'm just saying make it easier for pharma companies to bring drugs to market. And the amount of cost and time that goes into an inspection is tremendous, right? We had an FDA inspector here for 8 days, and then if we'd have to have the European group here for another 8 days, and Canada for another 8 days, that's realistically non-value activities. If one inspection can work for all organizations, that would be a great outcome. And as I said, I know that's starting to happen. It's got to keep going at a deeper level for sure.
Yeah. In terms of engaging with policymakers, how is that process going, do you think?
I don't know
Is
that.
that a
I don't know
challenge?
the answer for that one. I mean, certainly there are organizations in the contract manufacturing space. There's a group called PBOA in DC that is in fact meeting with different legislative groups to help everything around the contract manufacturing space. I'm personally not involved in that, so I can't speak to the details, but I know that you've got to plant a lot of seeds to get these ideas known, understood, and ultimately acted upon.
Yeah.
Maybe Vince had something with BioCrossroads we can help with.
No? Mic's open.
Sorry.
Well, I just said maybe that's something we can help with.
Well, it's something we can work through our partners. We don't deal with direct advocacy in our nonprofit status, but others in our ecosystem can support.
All right, well, that concludes our first panel. Can we give our panelists a round of applause?
Just a few minutes. You guys can come on up and join us. We will let Karen introduce each of you here in one moment.
All right, well, we are starting our second panel for this afternoon. I want to introduce our panel to you all. Please help me welcome Leanne Merriman, Director of Customer Experience at Langham Logistics, Jessica Tower, Vice President of Attractions at Indiana Economic Development Corporation, and Brooke Kinzicki, Senior Director, Global Supply Chain Resiliency and Sustainability at Eli Lilly and Company. Can we get a round of applause for these ladies? All right. So we are going to be talking about our strengths and opportunities. How can we establish Indiana as indispensable to global life sciences, supply chains, including through investments and partnerships today? All right. Leanne, I'm going to start with you. Well, you're in the middle, so I got to start with you. All right. So we hear a lot about global supply chains becoming increasingly complex. Can you tell us more about some of the bigger changes that we face today versus even just looking back a few years ago?
Yes, thanks. A couple have been mentioned already tonight, but specifically in our role, we are a 3PL. So our capabilities stream between the ambient warehousing and transportation and the other vertical being a large part in life sciences, temp control, GMP warehousing. So obviously the big pivot was the pandemic for us specifically and many others. And since that time, it sort of launched the reshoring or onshoring, as some people are referring to it. And those biggest changes that we're seeing is an influx and request of additional space, which is at a premium now at a temp controlled level and GMP standards. And that there's not lots of that sitting out there readily available, especially in the capacity that people are requesting. The second piece that we're seeing in that is a desire to have it centralized, not just in where it's located and how it feeds the raw material centers for production, but also in their systems, in their own AI, their security, and they want all that in one place with one visibility to be able to have. And so trying to stay ahead of that so they're never in the place they were again at that time. Those are sort of the bigger. The other large one, and several people have said it today, is speed to market. We got to do it faster and stay on pace. I'm really proud of what we are doing currently with our partners, 2 of them actually sitting here with us, so thank you, but also some of our dedicated partners where we're no longer just a 3PL company, right? We have to be smart in our software, we have to be smart in how we construct our facilities and who we do that with. And so in the past 3 years, we've added 3 of those facilities, building them in 6 to 9 months from the ground up. And we're able to do that by having dedicated partners that own their supply chains that we can help support and lean on our other partners to support us in that. So kind of a longer answer, but understanding that those are the biggest things. Do it faster, bigger, and make it available to support not just the manufacturing, but even the CMOs are a part of that as well.
So staying on the topic of partnerships, Jessica, I want to move to you for this because the IDEC is doing a lot. Can you share some of Indiana's strengths when it comes to attracting global partnerships?
Absolutely, and I think the key word is partnerships, and that's a key term that most Hoosiers have. We know that we can call on our friends, our partners, to collectively attract businesses. But I'll really go back to probably the inception of the IEDC, and then Governor Daniels really wanted to take Indiana to the world, and that has been consistent over the past several decades of the IEDC and the leadership of Indiana. Governor Holcomb just came back from another international trip. And the international trips, we are visiting those businesses that are here and those that we want to recruit to continue building the ecosystem. So we have to go to the places where they're at in the countries. Stevanato Group is a prime example of that. We'll go over there and look at their facility. What can we do? How can we help you be successful here in Indiana?
All right, and that is the goal, for Indiana to be successful. Brooke, let's move on to you. How do you view the collaborative environment? I know we talked a lot about that. How do you view the collaborative environment here in our state? How can we build a more collaborative ecosystem among specifically life sciences companies?
I can speak to a small piece of that, and maybe Jessica, if you want to chime in. I think the fact that all of us are surrounded here trying to share knowledge and share insights is a sign that we do have a collaborative ecosystem. I also think that many of our partnerships within the state, we talk about partnerships, we talk about suppliers, how it really is a team, a collective that we have to lean on to be successful. And we've been able to establish very successful partnerships, whether it's between Lilly and academic institutions like Purdue, boiler up by the way, or if it's, our supplier partnerships, building those ecosystems where we can design sustainable solutions, redesign our supply chains, and partner onshore different activities. So I think Indiana has a great culture in that regard.
Yeah, and just to echo that, the collaboration is key. I think we do a good job, but we cannot let our foot off the pedal. We need to keep going. Leverage BioCrossroads, our industry partners, our academia, and all the way down to K through 12. It will take all of us to continue this success in talking to each other. It is not unfrequent that I have to call one of the partners that are in this room and ask them to help us with something. They always pick up the phone, they always respond, and they always want Indiana to grow and be successful. So keep that collaboration going and don't let our foot off the pedal.
Yeah. You mentioned K through 12, and we hear the phrase all the time, our children are our future. When do we start encouraging our younger generation to have an interest in this field?
I can take that now. Frankly, now. Start them in kindergarten and get that enthusiasm. How many times do we drive past a facility with our kids and what is that? What's going on in there? What's that fancy new logo? Well, invite them in. But I would say now, start them in kindergarten.
I completely agree. In fact, side story, but I just thought it was such an amazing story of what one of our small, diverse companies that Lilly partners with was doing. They're actually in a different state, but this supplier invests in middle school students, brings them in for different opportunities to learn about the nitty-gritty technology, getting into it, and taps them at that early age to show them what do you have to do to be successful in high school and then get into college and then get into these well-paying technical jobs. So we've actually encouraged our other small minority companies to sort of mimic what they're doing, and that was a homegrown program that this minority-owned supplier started themselves, but I think that's a great example.
One thing we're doing as a company on that same piece is getting the interns sooner in the universities, right? So not their senior year, but their sophomore year, because those of us that have been there for a long time, we are a little behind the curve on technology, and that's okay, right? We need people to come in to give us a different viewpoint, and so we've invested and encouraged this year. But I think we have to do better about getting in front of all the universities and high schools more frequently. Especially when you talk about logistics, it's not always exciting. They're like, what? What is that? But if you can make it interesting and exciting, and life sciences is very interesting if you understand it and can explain it.
And I would also say Ivy Tech. We're very fortunate to have the #1 accredited community college in the U.S. They are a jewel for this state, and they are a jewel for this nation. So I would even challenge everyone, get them involved with Ivy Tech. They have great partnerships with most of our institutions. They have great partnerships with Purdue, and that's critical.
Okay. Leanne, we're going to talk about the White House, how they established a goal that pharmaceutical products be discovered and manufactured in the U.S. to mitigate national security risks associated with geopolitical tensions overseas. How can Indiana's life sciences manufacturers mitigate some of these current risks?
Yeah, that is, we hear a lot of that right now from our customers and how they're going to stay ahead of that. And I already said it a little bit earlier, in that we're not just supply chain specialists anymore, right? We have to have the knowledge and software as well. But one big piece that we're seeing and suggest is in business continuity. How do you business continuity, not just in your systems, but in your supply chain, in your capacity, in your space, and in your people. Right? What is your sustainability plan for your people as well, to stay ahead of that and be able to bring that back here to support it. We're seeing a big pickup, as everyone is too, on the cybersecurity side. We're being challenged daily by our customers that we protect not only their data, but their customers' data. And everyone, I'm sure, that works in this field understands that. And so we have to rely heavily on the artificial intelligence and leaning into that to predict our own actions, how we're interacting with our customers, how they interact with us, what's out of the norm, and use that output, to sort of stay ahead of the curve. And then lastly, service level agreements, and I know this sounds weird in regards to that question, but in key performance indicators, starting to hold our own partners accountable to the same things we're held accountable to our customers on, because it creates security, confidence in what we're doing with them to protect what they're trying to build here.
Anyone else want to chime in?
Can you remind me of the question?
It's really long.
It was related to regulation emerging and need for onshoring. I mean, I think that's always been a steady worry. And so having a balance between internal manufacturing, external partnerships like INCOG and others, and ensuring that you're balanced in terms of your concentration of your nodes, and you're not too dependent in one geographic region, I think is the best mitigation strategy. But then leaning on partners like Langham to have strategic inventory placed elsewhere to offset some of those risks, those are things that we pursue, and we know many of our peers and competitors do as well. Yeah.
We know Indiana does a lot of things really well, right? A lot of things really well. Jessica, are you hearing anything from other states about what can be done better in Indiana? Speaking about, our funding commitment, how do we attract more investments and partnerships?
I think we can always be doing something better. I mean, that's just the reality of any business, any state. And I think we're doing it. We're continually boldly going into the future for Indiana. We're not thinking 5, 10 years down the road. We're thinking decades down the road. So I think that's one key component. And I would say one of our major strengths, and I think several people have mentioned this, is speed to market. That's what Indiana can provide. The connectivity and our speed to market is really helping Lilly with their new facility. They need to get their facility up operational because of the demand. We have the product here. The company is here as well, and we were able to prove ourselves that speed to market is key.
In terms of, and this is open to anyone, I also wanted to get your opinions too. What do you all think, or what are you hearing in terms of how Indiana can be better?
We got to meet ahead of this panel and talk, the three of us did, and when we talked about this question, she mentioned that she might punt it, so I spoke to a couple people on our leadership team, and I said, I can't think of anything, because truly, since the pandemic happened, and we had, we had to react to how we distributed, and we were fortunate enough to partner with IEDC and do the distribution of the reagents and the vaccines and all those elements, and even in that time, people were coming to us asking us, how are you guys doing it so quickly? You're doing it so much better than any other state, and you're using the funds appropriately, you're reporting it appropriately, and part of that goes back to that partnership and collaboration. But even within this market, most of our recent customers and the growth that we've experienced in the past 3 years are not from Indiana until recently. And they're choosing Indiana because of our flexibility, our nimbleness, our speed to market. Our willingness to just be good users. I mean, just that's what we hear. You're easy to work with. And, licensing is easier here, believe it or not. If it doesn't feel like it, it is when you're trying to do it in other states. So all of those things play into that. So we really don't hear the bad.
Yeah.
I would agree, exactly the same story. I had a colleague of mine who you know, and he joked that building a warehouse in Florence is way harder than building a warehouse in Indiana, where you have nice cornfields that you can just establish a new beautiful warehouse, state of the art. You have the workforces here to help establish what you need and implement the technology as well. So it's very different even in other countries, where I think Indiana is also competitive for that growth.
And so, Brooke, you deal with some very complex manufacturing every day at Lilly. How does Lilly play a major role in Indiana in terms of being the leading pharmaceutical exporter in the U.S.? Are you hearing about any challenges, or is there a number one challenge?
There are so many challenges. Yeah, I would say, you know, the number one challenge for the pharmaceutical industry as a whole and Lilly is always going to be making innovative medicines for patients that delivers value to patients. And our goal at Lilly is really to disrupt the standard of care to where it's changing the way we treat different disease states. And that goal is probably the most challenging thing that pharmaceutical companies have to do. But it protects you from some of those other risks, if you will, like pricing pressure, geopolitical risk, supply chain disruption. The list goes on and on. So I think for pharma, that is the biggest challenge and the biggest goal. And specifically for pharmaceutical manufacturing, it's continuously supplying that innovative medicine in a safe and reliable way in the face of disruption and all those things that I mentioned. So challenge number one, innovation. Challenge number two is really agility and overcoming those obstacles.
I was just going to ask you if that's your answer in terms of overcoming some of those challenges, but you, yeah.
Having agility.
Yeah, okay. We know workforce development is crucial, especially for maintaining what we talk about a competitive edge in global supply chains. What innovative approaches can Indiana adopt to ensure that the workforce is not only skilled, but also adaptable? I think adaptable is the big word here. To, you know, so many demands of the life sciences manufacturing industry. If you can list any programs that may help.
I feel like we answered that a little bit around the intern, but
Yeah, I'll go back to Ivy Tech, and there's some partnerships that they have with Lilly right now. They've created Lilly has created scholarships. And these individuals don't only have to, they're getting skilled, so that's fabulous, or upskilled in changing and adapting their skills. But they don't necessarily have to go to work for Lilly. Obviously, I'm sure you want them to, but that's for all industries. So it's kind of twofold. Lilly is helping our community as a whole. They're training and upskilling workers, not only for themselves, but for the community. And how can we collectively continue to do that? Upskill and reskill our employees, because as the decades go, we're training people right now for jobs that we don't know are going to exist. So we need to keep adapting and moving, and that's, and we've all said that, is adaptability and agility. We're doing that, but we need to keep doing that, and that's kind of maybe the pattern you see. We need to keep doing that, keep looking in the future.
We talked about AI earlier during our first panel. I wanted to bring it up again for this panel. And automation. AI and automation. Can you all talk about how Indiana, how the life sciences manufacturing ecosystem can stay ahead of the curve with so many changes that are coming?
I can start with that one if it helps. We in the past 2 or 3 years have significantly invested in engineering team that focuses on automation at the request of our clients. And most of the biggest things, obviously, our customers expect some sort of either efficiency or savings when you implement that. So a lot of the ask around inventory. So we're seeing we have drone usage for inventory counts in our facilities that we're able to share that output with our clients. They have access to it. It's integratable. We are using tracking software that is integrated into our transportation management systems. And yes, it's GPS, but there's no longer any human intervention at all. It's actually predicting what the drivers do. It's giving the feedback. live to our customers through their portals and software to allow them to make better decisions, make sure their product's protected on the way. But it's sort of becoming an expectation to, making sure that we're staying ahead of that. So that's why we are investing in interns and engineers to be able to do that. But it's certainly an ask.
I would agree. Lily's been very public about many of the manufacturing sites that we're building around the world and in the United States as well, in Lebanon as well. And a huge aspect of enabling our increased capacity extremely quickly depends on automation and also on artificial intelligence, machine learning, to reduce the constraints that we have in our facilities, in our new ones and our existing ones, and really, like you said, adopt the emerging technologies to be able to meet unprecedented demand that we've seen in recent years. So.
And maybe a little bit of a dotted line is our semiconductor ecosystem that we are building here. We've had the most recent announcement with SK Hynix up in West Lafayette, data centers to store all of this AI. So there are some dotted lines that is assisting life sciences that is coming from other skilled manufacturing as semiconductors and data centers.
Okay, I am learning so much from you all today. I want to open the floor and ask you all for any last words, anything that you feel was not covered.
I'll start. I just want to thank everyone for being here. That's the first step. We cannot do it again without all of our partners, state, local, industry, universities, school systems. That's the biggest thing I want to walk away, or everyone to walk away, is thank you for everything that you do here in the state.
I can't follow that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, but also, spread the word. I think that, I've just learned so much sitting here, and I've worked with these two partners for years, and I think we have to continue to share the message internally in our own companies as well, and encourage our employees to get involved differently, right? Not just sitting and doing their task. How can they make an impact here?
I think one thing I do want to highlight, in addition to what we've talked about on our panel and the other as well, it's part of my nice long title, resiliency and sustainability. I think it's a hot topic and has been since the COVID-19 pandemic. And really the way that you crack those big issues is by creating ecosystems where you can develop technologies that we can share and deploy collectively. So we are leaning into partnerships. We're also trying to follow the lead of other industries who, frankly, do a better job with supply chain sustainability than big pharma and pharmaceutical companies. So I think continuing things like this, continuing to come together and foster this environment is exactly the answer to those big challenges. So thank you.
Yeah, okay. I'm not sure how we're doing on time.
We are right on time, and we are ready to welcome Ms. back up. Those are remarks that we have on our program.
All right, round of applause for our panel. All right.
Before we release you, is there any Q&A from the audience? I want to make sure that if anyone has any questions for the panelists, that we have opportunity for you to pose them. For this panel or the folks that were on the prior panel. So Mr. Pardo and Corey are still here. Any questions? Comments? Or are you just looking for a beer in line? That's probably the answer. Okay.
Well, first off, I want to thank Karen for moderating our panel. So doing great. You did a great job. Thank you. I also want to thank all the panelists, Corey, Ricardo, Liz, Leanne, Jessica, and Brooke. Thank you for participating and lending your expertise and your insights. So thank you. And then thanks again for our awesome hosts, Corey and Doug and team. It's great to be, in a company where the action's happening. You can feel the vibe. It's a great space, and so thanks for hosting us here and having this great gathering here. And thank you all for coming. Our next, Amanda, you have to remind me, when's our next FrameWORX? September 18th, and we're going to be focusing on workforce development. So we touched on it a little bit here, but we're going to really dive deep on that. There's a lot of great work that is going on that Jane Dunnigan-Smith has been helping lead and in partnership with a lot of folks in this room. And so we're going to be talking about workforce development there. So join us then. That will be at 16 Tech at IBRI building again. All right. Thank you, and please stay. We have beverages and some refreshments here, so please stay and network and meet someone you haven't met already. All right. Thank you.